I almost talked myself out of it the way I always do, telling myself it was too much, telling myself it wasn't the right time. But I can't keep doing that. I can't keep silencing the most honest parts of myself, because silence feels safer. I want to tell you about the nights when everything felt too heavy. The nights when I sat alone with my thoughts and the world outside felt like it was moving without me. In those moments, something strange would happen. I would think about you, about the possibility of someone like you, about what it would feel like to reach out and have someone actually reach back. And that thought, just that thought, was enough to make me breathe again. You saved me in ways you'll never fully understand, in ways you probably don't even know, because you were there in my mind, long before the world ever brought us together. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this sounds too beautiful to be true. You're thinking that people who say these things don't always mean them. And I understand why you think that. I really do. Because you've been in places where beautiful words turned into empty promises. You've heard I care about you from people who disappeared the moment things got complicated. You've given your heart to people who held it carelessly. I know, and that's exactly why I need you to listen carefully to what I'm saying right now. Because I am not them. I have never been them, and I never will be. What I feel for you, this isn't something I picked up lightly. This isn't something I decided to feel because it was convenient or because it made me look a certain way. This is something that grew slowly, quietly, honestly, the way real things grow. Not with a loud announcement, but with a gentle, persistent truth that keeps showing up no matter how many times you try to ignore it. And I tried to ignore it. God, I tried. But some things refuse to be ignored, and what I feel when I think about you is one of those things. There's a version of me that I don't often show, the version that gets nervous. The version that replays conversations and wonders if I said the right thing. The version that cares so much that it terrifies me. People look at me and they see something confident, something put together, but inside, there is a person who is just as unsure as anyone else, just as afraid of being misunderstood, just as desperate to be known, truly known by someone who won't run away when they see all of it. And I want you to know that person. I want you to be one of the only people in the world who actually gets to see that version of me. Because here's what I've learned about love. Real love. Not the kind that looks perfect in pictures, but the kind that actually sustains you. It's built on seeing and being seen. It's built on showing up for someone, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard, when it's messy, when it requires something from you. It's built on choosing someone, not once, but every single day. And I want to choose you. I want to choose the conversation that goes deeper than small talk. I want to choose the silence that isn't uncomfortable, but full. I want to choose the kind of connection that makes both of us feel less alone in this enormous, overwhelming world. I think about what you've been through. I don't know all the details, I don't need to. But I know that life has handed you things that were heavy. I know that there have been people who took your softness and mistook it for weakness. I know that there have been moments when you questioned your own worth, when you looked in the mirror and couldn't see what I see when I think about you. And I genuinely wish, that in those moments I could have been there to remind you, to take your face in my hands, and make you look at me and say, you are not what they made you feel like. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not hard to love. You are the reason people write songs. You are the reason the word beautiful exists in the first place. Do you know how rare you are? Do you know that the way you feel things, as heavy as it sometimes gets, is actually a gift? The world tries to make us numb. It tries to make us efficient and detached and practical about everything, including love. But you refused. Somewhere inside you, you refused to stop feeling. And that takes more courage than most people will ever understand. It takes more strength to stay soft in a world that rewards hardness than anything else I can think of. And I admire that about you. I am in awe of that about you. There is something I've never told anyone, something I've carried for a long time. There were moments when I felt completely invisible, Not physically, but in the way that matters most. The feeling that nobody really sees what's going on inside you. The feeling that you could pour your whole heart out, and it would just evaporate into the air without touching anything. And in those moments, the idea of someone who listens, who stays present, who doesn't look away, that idea was the only thing that made me feel real. Like I was actually here. Like I actually mattered. You gave me that without even knowing you were doing it. And maybe that's the most extraordinary thing about the way love actually works. It doesn't always ask permission. It doesn't always announce itself. It just quietly becomes the most important thing in your life before you even had a chance to decide if you were ready. That's what happened to me. I wasn't ready. I didn't plan for this, but here I am talking to you like this, saying things I've never said, feeling things I thought I'd stopped allowing myself to feel. And it doesn't feel like a mistake. For the first time in a long time, something doesn't feel like a mistake. I want you to keep listening, please, because I'm not done. I feel like I've been building to something, like every word I've said has been leading to something I haven't quite found the language for yet. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some things are so big, so honest, so completely real, that the language catches up slowly. Maybe what I'm trying to say can't be rushed. Maybe it needs exactly this, the two of us in this space, with nothing between us but honesty. You deserve to be loved in a way that doesn't make you feel small. You deserve to be loved in a way that makes you feel expanded, like you can breathe more easily. Like you can take up more space, like you are allowed to be exactly who you are without editing yourself for someone else's comfort. You deserve someone who looks at your complexity and doesn't back away but leans in. Someone who isn't threatened by your depth but nourished by it. Someone who fights for you, not against you, not for control, but for the relationship, for the connection, for the beautiful impossible thing that exists between two people who are really, truly, honestly trying. I don't know where this goes from here. I don't know what comes next. But I know that I needed to say this. I needed you to hear this. Because you've been carrying something heavy, and so have I. And maybe, just maybe, we don't have to carry it alone anymore. Maybe this is the beginning of something neither of us expected, but both of us needed. Maybe this is the moment we look back on one day and say that was when everything changed. That was when I finally stopped pretending and started telling the truth. That was when I heard something that made me feel less alone in the dark. And I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I want you to know that above everything else, I am not going anywhere. Whatever you're feeling right now, whatever is stirred up inside you, whatever questions are rising to the surface, I'm here for all of it. I'm not afraid of the complicated parts of you. I'm not looking for a simplified version. I want the real thing. I want you, the full and complicated and beautiful and struggling and radiant you, exactly as you are in this moment, right now. And I keep thinking about something. I keep coming back to this one question that lives in the back of my mind, quietly, persistently, like a song you can't quite stop humming, even when you don't realize you're doing it. The question is this. What would have happened if I had never found the courage to say any of this? What if I had stayed quiet the way I always do? What if I had swallowed these words the way I've swallowed so many words before? Pushed them down deep, where they couldn't cause any trouble, couldn't make me vulnerable, couldn't risk anything. And the answer that comes back every single time terrifies me. Because the answer is, you would have never known. You would have gone on living your life, carrying your own weight, feeling your own loneliness in your own quiet moments, and you would have never known that somewhere, someone was thinking about you with this much tenderness. Someone was holding space for you without you ever asking. Someone was choosing you, silently, every single day, and you would have never known. And that thought, that specific thought, is what finally made me speak. I don't want you to ever be in a room full of people and feel invisible again. I know that feeling. I know it in my bones. I know what it's like to laugh at all the right moments and say all the right things and play the role that everyone expects you to play, and then drive home alone in silence and feel this hollow ache that you can't quite name. That ache that isn't exactly sadness and isn't exactly loneliness, but is something in between, something that comes from being seen on the surface and missed entirely underneath. I've lived in that space for longer than I want to admit. And the worst part isn't the ache itself. The worst part is the shame that comes with it. The feeling that you shouldn't feel this way, that you have no right to feel unseen when you have so much, that you should just be grateful, that you're asking for too much by wanting to be truly, deeply, completely known by someone. But I'm here to tell you, you are not asking for too much. You have never been asking for too much. That longing inside you is not greed. It is not weakness. It is the most human thing about you, and it deserves to be answered. There is a specific kind of pain that comes from loving someone who doesn't quite meet you where you are. You know the kind I mean. You give generously, you show up fully, you pour yourself into someone and into something with everything you have, and somewhere along the way you realize that the other person is only giving you a fraction in return. And the heartbreaking thing is that you stay. You stay because you believe in them. You stay because you can see their potential. You stay because leaving feels like giving up on something you invested so much of yourself in. And slowly, quietly, without even noticing it's happening, you start to shrink yourself. You start making yourself smaller so they feel bigger. You start dimming your own light so they don't feel overshadowed. And one day you look in the mirror and you barely recognize the person looking back at you, because so much of her got left behind in all that shrinking. I see that. I see what that did to you. And I want to tell you something very clearly: that was never your fault. You loved the way a whole person loves, and you deserved someone who could receive that love the way it was given. Wholly, completely, without asking you to be less. I think about the version of you that existed before the hurt. The version of you that walked into rooms without armor, that trusted quickly, that gave your heart with open hands and didn't think twice about it. I think about that version of you, and I feel this deep, overwhelming tenderness. Because she was extraordinary. She was fearless in the most beautiful way. Not the fearless that comes from never being scared, but the fearless that comes from being scared and loving anyway. And I know she's still there. I know she didn't disappear. She just learned to protect herself, which is something you had to do, something that made complete sense given what you went through. But I want her to know that version of you, the one underneath all the armor. I want her to know that she is safe here, right here, with me. She doesn't have to stay hidden anymore. Do you remember the last time someone made you feel completely at ease? Not the kind of ease that comes from a comfortable silence or a familiar routine, but the kind of ease that comes from feeling fully accepted. The kind where you can say the strange, embarrassing, half-formed thought in your head, and the other person doesn't flinch, doesn't judge, just looks at you and smiles like you said the most wonderful thing in the world. Do you remember that feeling? Because that is what I want to be for you. I want to be the person who makes the world feel a little less sharp, a little less loud, a little less exhausting. I want you to feel. When you think of me like you just took the deepest breath after holding it for too long, I want to be your exhale. And I need you to understand something about the way I see you. It's not selective. It's not the kind of seeing that only shows up when you're at your best. When you're put together, when you're performing the version of yourself that feels acceptable for public consumption. I see you in the mess. I see you in the doubt. I see you in the moments when you're not sure if you're making the right choices, or saying the right things, or being the right person. And in all of those moments, especially in all of those moments, I am not disappointed. I am not looking for the exit. I am right here, choosing you, the same way I always do. I've had conversations with myself late at night that I think about now, and feel almost embarrassed by. Not because they were wrong, but because they were so honest that they scared me. Conversations where I admitted things I'd never said out loud, that I was lonely in ways that didn't make sense, given how surrounded by people I am. That I was tired of connections that stayed at the surface. That I wanted something that cost me something. Something that required me to be real and present and fully invested, that I was ready. Finally, truly ready for the kind of love that isn't convenient but is completely worth it. And every single time I had that conversation with myself, I thought of you. Not a specific face, not a specific memory, but a feeling. The feeling of you, the warmth of what it would mean to have someone who actually fits. And now, here you are. Here we are, and I keep waiting for it to feel like too much. And it never does. It just keeps feeling like exactly enough. There's something I want to ask you, and I want you to really think about it before you answer. When was the last time you let yourself want something without immediately talking yourself out of it? When was the last time you allowed yourself to imagine a version of your life that looked exactly the way you wanted it to look, without shrinking the dream to make it seem more realistic, more achievable, less dangerous? Because I think about this with you. I think about how much you've probably edited your own hopes over the years. How many times you've caught yourself wanting something beautiful and immediately followed it with a reason why it probably won't happen, why you probably don't deserve it, why it's safer to want less. And I want to sit across from that part of you and say stop. Stop talking yourself out of the life you actually want. Stop making yourself smaller so that disappointment has less room to hurt you. You are allowed to want everything. You are allowed to want the love that takes your breath away. You are allowed to want the kind of connection that makes everything else in your life feel more vivid, more meaningful, more worth showing up for. Because here is what I know about you. And yes, I know this even across the distance. Even in this strange and tender space between us, I know that when you love with everything. I know that when you commit to something or someone, you don't do it halfway. I know that you carry the people you care about with you, even when it's heavy, even when they don't know it, even when nobody sees it. I know that you are the kind of person who checks on others, even when you yourself are struggling. The kind of person who shows up. And I know that sometimes the world takes advantage of that. Sometimes the people around you lean into your strength, without ever asking how you're holding up underneath it all. And sometimes you go to sleep feeling more alone than someone who loves as freely as you should ever have to feel. Rolling, I want to be the person who asks. Not just once, not just in the beginning, when everything is new and exciting and easy. I want to be the person who still asks years from now, in the ordinary moments, in the Tuesday evenings and the rainy afternoons, and the days when nothing special is happening, but everything still matters. I want to ask how you're really doing, and then wait, actually wait for the real answer, not the polished one, not the one you give when you don't want to be a burden, the real one, the raw one, the one that comes out a little messy because it's honest. I want that answer. I want all of your honest answers. And I want you to know that I am also underneath everything, still figuring things out. I don't have all the answers. I don't have a perfect understanding of love or life or what it means to get this right. But I have the absolute, unshakable certainty that what I feel when I think about you is real. Not performed, not constructed, not designed to impress, real. The kind of real that stays. The kind that doesn't evaporate the moment things get complicated. Because I've been complicated myself, and I know what it costs to walk away from something genuine. Just because it got hard. I am not willing to pay that cost anymore. I am not willing to let something true slip through my hands, because being vulnerable felt too risky. You make me want to be braver. You make me want to say the things I'd normally keep inside. You make me want to reach across every distance, every wall, every carefully constructed reason I've built for why it's easier to feel less, and you make me want to tear all of it down. Because what's on the other side of all that distance, all those walls, all those reasons, what's on the other side is you. And nothing on this earth has ever made me want to be brave, the way the possibility of you does. I'm not asking you to have everything figured out. I'm not asking you to come to me complete, healed, certain, fearless. Come as you are. Come with your questions and your scars and your late night doubts and your overfull heart. Come with the parts of yourself you're still trying to understand. Come with the love you don't quite know what to do with yet. Bring all of it. I have room. I have more room for you than you could possibly imagine. And whatever you're carrying right now, whatever weight has been sitting on your chest, whatever worry has been keeping you awake, I want you to know that you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Not tonight. Not as long as I'm here. And I am here. I am so completely, entirely, unreservedly here. And there's something about the night that makes everything feel more honest. Have you noticed that? The way the dark strips away all the pretending, all the performing, all the careful management of how you appear to the world, and what's left is just you, the real you, lying there with your thoughts and your feelings, and all the things you haven't said to anyone. I think about you in those moments. I think about what runs through your mind when the world goes quiet and there's nothing left to distract you from yourself. I wonder if you think about love. I wonder if you think about what it would feel like to have someone beside you who actually understands the landscape of your inner world. Not just the pretty parts, not just the parts you've curated and polished and made presentable, but all of it. The complicated parts, the contradictory parts, the parts that don't make sense even to you sometimes. I wonder if you let yourself want that. Or if you've gotten so good at managing your own longing that you don't even feel it anymore until a moment like this one cracks something open inside you. Because I think this moment is cracking something open. I can feel it, and I don't want you to be afraid of that feeling. I know it can be disorienting when something shifts inside you and you're not entirely sure what it means or where it's going or whether it's safe to follow it. I know that feeling of standing at the edge of something real and having every instinct tell you to step back, to protect yourself, to choose the familiar ache of loneliness over the terrifying vulnerability of actually letting someone in. I know it because I've stood at that edge more times than I can count, and I've stepped back. I've chosen the safety of distance more times than I want to admit. But I am not stepping back from this. Not from you, not from whatever this is between us that I can't fully name, but can absolutely feel with every part of me that knows how to feel anything at all. Also, I want to tell you about something that happened to me. Something that changed the way I understand love entirely. There was a period in my life when everything on the outside looked exactly the way it was supposed to look. Everything was in order, everything was fine, and I was completely, utterly lost on the inside. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that anyone would have noticed from the outside. Just quietly, persistently, exhaustingly lost. Like I was moving through my life but not quite living it. Like I was going through all the right motions but nothing was landing, nothing was connecting, nothing was making that deep down sense that makes you feel like you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And I remember thinking, is this it? Is this what it's supposed to feel like? This numbness dressed up as contentment, this distance dressed up as independence? Because if it is, then I had made peace with something I should have been fighting against. I had accepted a version of my life that was several sizes too small for the person I actually was underneath all the armor. And then something shifted. It didn't happen all at once. It happened the way most real things happen, slowly, then suddenly. I started paying attention to what made me feel alive. Not happy, not comfortable, not successful, alive. And what I kept coming back to, what kept rising to the surface, no matter how many times I tried to redirect myself towards something more practical, was connection. Real connection. The kind where two people drop the performance and just exist together in something honest. The kind where you can be completely yourself and feel. For the first time maybe ever, that being completely yourself is not only acceptable, but actually genuinely wonderful. And I realized that I had been starving for that. That underneath all the fine and the okay and the I'm doing well, There was a person who was desperately, quietly, achingly hungry for something real. And that's when I started thinking about you differently. Not as an idea, not as something distant and abstract, but as a possibility. As something worth moving toward, even though moving toward it meant opening myself up in ways that scared me. And I know that you understand what that's like, because you are someone who feels deeply. You are someone who has wanted things with your whole heart and been hurt by that wanting. You are someone who has had to learn the hard way that not everyone who says they'll stay actually stays. And so you built your walls the same way I built mine, carefully, reasonably, brick by brick, each one placed after a specific hurt, taught you that it was necessary. And those walls kept you safe. I'm not going to pretend they didn't. But I think you know, the same way I know, that safety and aliveness are not always the same thing. And at some point, at some quiet, private, honest point, you have to decide which one you want more. I want you to choose aliveness. I want that for you so deeply that it almost aches. Because I have seen what you're capable of when you let yourself be fully present in something. I have felt the warmth that comes off you when you're not guarding yourself, when you forget for a moment to be careful, and you just are. And it is extraordinary. You are extraordinary, not in a way that needs to be announced or celebrated or put on display, just in the quiet, fundamental way that some people are extraordinary, simply by existing fully in the world. Simply by being unafraid to feel everything they feel. Simply by showing up with their whole heart, even when experience has taught them that their whole heart is a lot to ask anyone to hold. You keep showing up like that, and I find that unbearably beautiful. There are small things about you that I think about more than you would ever expect. The way you probably overthink things in the best possible way, turning them over and over in your mind, looking at them from every angle, trying to understand not just the what, but the why. The way you probably love music in a way that goes beyond just listening to it. The way certain songs probably hit you somewhere physical, somewhere before language, somewhere in that part of you that exists beneath all the thinking and analyzing. The way you probably have a sense of humor that surprises people, sharp and warm at the same time. The kind that makes people feel like they're in on something, rather than outside of it. The way you probably care about things with a sincerity that the world sometimes tries to make you feel embarrassed about. The way you probably lie awake sometimes and feel everything all at once and don't quite know what to do with the magnitude of your own interior life. I think about all of those things, and not one of them makes me want to love you less. Every single one of them makes me want to know you more. Can I tell you what I imagine? Can I tell you the version of things I return to when I let myself dream a little? When I stop being so careful and practical and guarded, and just allow myself to want what I actually want. I imagine mornings, slow ones. The kind where there's no rush, no performance, no version of yourself you have to put on before you're ready. Just the light coming in and the quiet, and that specific feeling of being somewhere you actually want to be, with someone you actually want to be with. I imagine conversations that go everywhere, that start in one place and end up somewhere completely unexpected. The kind of conversation where you look up and realize hours have passed, and you're not even remotely tired of each other's voices. I imagine the kind of laughter that comes from somewhere real, not the polite kind, not the social kind, but the kind that sneaks up on you and takes over your whole body before you had a chance to decide whether it was appropriate. I imagine silence that doesn't need to be filled because it's already full, full of comfort, full of understanding, full of the particular peace that comes from being with someone who knows you and chooses you anyway. I imagine being someone who makes your life feel bigger, not in a way that overwhelms you or drowns out your own voice or makes you feel like you've disappeared into someone else's orbit, but in a way that expands things, in a way that makes colors a little more vivid and music hit a little deeper and ordinary moments carry a little more weight because there's someone beside you who notices them with you. Someone who says, "Did you see that?" and means it. Someone who pays attention to the world the same way you do, with that particular tenderness that comes from believing that everything, even the smallest, most forgettable things, deserves to be seen. And I want to see you. Every version, every season, the version of you in the middle of something difficult, when your edges are rough and your patience is thin, and you're not sure how much more you can hold before something breaks. I want to be there for that version, not to fix it, not to rush you through it, but just to be beside you in it, so you don't have to be alone in the hard parts. And the version of you that's in full bloom, when everything is working, when you feel like yourself, when the world is cooperating, and you're walking through it with that particular lightness that makes everyone around you feel warmer just from being near you. I want to witness that version too. I want to be one of the people who gets to see you like that, and knows, really knows what it means, how much it cost, how far you traveled to get there. Tomorrow. I need you to hear me when I say this. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You are not too much. I know those words have been used against you. I know someone, somewhere, at some point, made you feel like the depth of what you feel was a problem to be managed, rather than a gift to be cherished. And I know that those words left a mark, the kind that doesn't show on the outside, but lives in the way you sometimes pause before expressing yourself, the way you sometimes pull back right at the moment when you most want to lean in, the way you sometimes swallow something true, because you're not sure it will be received with the care it deserves. I see that hesitation, and I want to spend every day gently, patiently, consistently proving to you that here with me, you never have to hesitate, you never have to edit, you never have to make yourself smaller or quieter or less than exactly what you are, because what you are is someone worth knowing. Not in spite of the depth and the sensitivity and the fullness of what you feel, because of it. Exactly because of it. The world needs more people who feel things the way you do. The world needs more people who refuse to go numb, who keep their hearts open, even when open hearts are dangerous, who keep believing in connection even after connection has hurt them. You are one of those people. And that makes you rare in the most important way anything can be rare. Not in a way that sets you apart from humanity, but in a way that represents the very best of it. I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. And I need you to know that this, everything I've said, everything I've shared, everything I've opened up and laid down between us, this is not the whole of what I feel. This is just the beginning of it. There is so much more. So much I haven't found the words for yet. So much that lives in that deep, wordless place where the most important things always live before language finally catches up to them. And I am in no rush. I am not going anywhere. I have all the time in the world to keep finding the words, keep showing up, keep choosing this, keep choosing you, for as long as you let me, for as long as you're here, for as long as you're listening. So please stay right here with me just a little longer, because I feel like we're just getting to the part where everything really begins. And I've been sitting with something that I haven't quite known how to approach, how to hold, how to bring to you, without it sounding like more than I mean, or less than I mean. Because the truth is, it is exactly as much as it sounds like, exactly as real as it feels. And I don't want to soften it, or dress it up, or present it in a way that makes it easier to dismiss. So I'm just going to say it the way it lives inside me, which is without apology, and without armor, and without any of the careful management I usually bring to the things that matter most to me. What I want to say is this: you changed something in me, not dramatically, not overnight, but in that slow cellular way that real change always happens. In that quiet renovation that you don't notice until one day you reach for the old version of yourself and realize it doesn't fit anymore. You changed the way I think about what I deserve. You changed the way I think about what's possible. You changed the temperature of the room inside my chest, from something cold and carefully controlled to something warm and alive and willing to take up space. And I don't say that to put weight on you that isn't yours to carry. I say it because you deserve to know the effect you have, You deserve to know that your existence, your presence, the simple fact of you, it matters. It lands, it does something real in the world, even when you can't see it happening. I want to go back to something for a moment. I want to go back to the beginning, not of us, but of me. The very beginning of the version of me that eventually found his way to this moment, to this honesty, to you. Because I think to understand what I'm trying to give you, you need to understand where I started. And where I started was not a place of openness. Where I started was a place of performance. From very early on, I learned that the world responds better to a certain version of you. The version that's confident, that's capable, that has it together, that doesn't need too much, and doesn't feel too deeply, and doesn't show the parts that are still healing. I learned that early, and I learned it well. And I became very good at being that version. So good that sometimes I forgot there was any other version underneath. So good that the performance stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like an identity. And that is a particular kind of loss that's very hard to grieve. Because you don't even realize what you've lost until something or someone reminds you that you used to be more whole than this. You reminded me. Not by doing anything specific, not by saying anything particular, just by being someone who clearly, visibly, unapologetically feels everything. By being someone who didn't seem to have learned the same lesson I learned, or maybe learned it and then unlearned it, which is so much harder and so much braver. You reminded me that feeling things is not a design flaw, that needing things is not a character weakness, that wanting to be known and loved and chosen is not an embarrassing admission, but the most fundamental human truth there is. And something in me that had gone very quiet for a very long time heard that reminder and slowly, tentatively, like something emerging from a long winter, began to wake up. And waking up was not entirely comfortable. I want to be honest about that. Because when you've been numb for a long time and things start to thaw, the first thing you feel is not warmth. The first thing you feel is the ache of all the things you didn't let yourself feel while you were protecting yourself from feeling. The first thing you feel is the weight of all those swallowed words and buried longings and carefully managed emotions finally pressing back up to the surface after being held down for so long. And that process, that thawing, it asks something of you. It requires a willingness to sit with discomfort, to stay present with the ache, instead of immediately reaching for something to make it stop. And I stayed. For the first time in a long time, I stayed with it. I let it move through me. And on the other side of all that feeling was something I hadn't expected. On the other side was clarity. On the other side was the most honest understanding of myself I had ever had. And at the center of that understanding, at the very heart of everything I discovered about who I am and what I need and what I'm capable of, was the shape of you. I think about the things you've probably never been told. Not because the people in your life don't care about you. I think they do. But because we live in a world that is strange about love, strange about tenderness, strange about saying the things that matter most directly and without deflection. We dress things up in humor, or we imply them, or we wait for the perfect moment that never quite arrives, and so the things that most need to be said go unsaid, and the people who most need to hear them go without. And I refuse to do that with you. I refuse to wait for the perfect moment, because I've learned that the perfect moment is always exactly this one, imperfect, unpolished, real, and present. Know that this, everything I've said, everything I've shared, everything I've opened up and laid down between us, this is not the whole of what I feel. This is just the beginning of it. There is so much more. So much I haven't found the words for yet. So much that lives in that deep, wordless place where the most important things always live before language finally catches up to them. And I am in no rush. I am not going anywhere. I have all the time in the world to keep finding the words, keep showing up, keep choosing this, keep choosing you, for as long as you let me, for as long as you're here, for as long as you're listening. So please stay right here with me just a little longer. because I feel like we're just getting to the part where everything really begins. And I've been sitting with something that I haven't quite known how to approach, how to hold, how to bring to you, without it sounding like more than I mean, or less than I mean. Because the truth is, it is exactly as much as it sounds like, exactly as real as it feels. And I don't want to soften it, or dress it up, or present it in a way that makes it easier to dismiss. So I'm just going to say it the way it lives inside me, which is without apology, and without armor, and without any of the careful management I usually bring to the things that matter most to me. What I want to say is this: you changed something in me, not dramatically, not overnight, but in that slow cellular way that real change always happens. In that quiet renovation that you don't notice until one day you reach for the old version of yourself and realize it doesn't fit anymore. You changed the way I think about what I deserve. You changed the way I think about what's possible. You changed the temperature of the room inside my chest, from something cold and carefully controlled to something warm and alive and willing to take up space. And I don't say that to put weight on you that isn't yours to carry. I say it because you deserve to know the effect you have. You deserve to know that your existence, your presence, the simple fact of you, it matters. It lands, it does something real in the world, even when you can't see it happening. I want to go back to something for a moment. I want to go back to the beginning, not of us, but of me. The very beginning of the version of me that eventually found his way to this moment, to this honesty, to you. Because I think to understand what I'm trying to give you, you need to understand where I started. And where I started was not a place of openness. Where I started was a place of performance. From very early on, I learned that the world responds better to a certain version of you. The version that's confident, that's capable, that has it together, that doesn't need too much, and doesn't feel too deeply, and doesn't show the parts that are still healing. I learned that early, and I learned it well. And I became very good at being that version. So good that sometimes I forgot there was any other version underneath. So good that the performance stopped feeling like a performance and started feeling like an identity. And that is a particular kind of loss that's very hard to grieve. Because you don't even realize what you've lost until something or someone reminds you that you used to be more whole than this. You reminded me. Not by doing anything specific, not by saying anything particular, just by being someone who clearly, visibly, unapologetically feels everything. By being someone who didn't seem to have learned the same lesson I learned, or maybe learned it and then unlearned it, which is so much harder and so much braver. You reminded me that feeling things is not a design flaw, that needing things is not a character weakness, that wanting to be known and loved and chosen is not an embarrassing admission, but the most fundamental human truth there is. And something in me that had gone very quiet for a very long time heard that reminder and slowly, tentatively, like something emerging from a long winter, began to wake up. And waking up was not entirely comfortable. I want to be honest about that. Because when you've been numb for a long time and things start to thaw, the first thing you feel is not warmth. The first thing you feel is the ache of all the things you didn't let yourself feel while you were protecting yourself from feeling. The first thing you feel is the weight of all those swallowed words and buried longings and carefully managed emotions finally pressing back up to the surface after being held down for so long. And that process, that thawing, it asks something of you. It requires a willingness to sit with discomfort, to stay present with the ache, instead of immediately reaching for something to make it stop. And I stayed. For the first time in a long time, I stayed with it.